Well, E3 was a thing, and I thought I might talk about it, cause why not? Probably won't put much visuals in this, maybe if I'm not feeling lazy, but let's start with everyone's favorite. EA. EA is always, every year, without fail, the worst conference. And it's appropriate given that, well, it's goddamn EA. I usually don't watch EA's conferences, and when I do, it's usually watching someone else react to it. But this year I watched it alone, and the only reason I was able to tolerate it was because I was live tweeting during it. I was looking at Twitter more than the conference itself. So what did they actually show? Nothing I give a shit about. Battlefield 5 has a Battle Royale mode. Woo. Don't care. Also sports all throughout the conference. Because the kinds of people who really care about Madden and FIFA are totally watching E3. I know there has to be an audience for these sports games because they keep making them, but do they honestly get excited for a yearly release with minimal changes? Anyways, they talked about Star Wars stuff. Looks like they're adding things to Battlefront 2 that were already in the original game that came out in 2005. Remember when games were complete at launch? And then they talked about, not shown, talked about a new Star Wars game in development where you could play as a Jedi. I can't wait to see how they mess that one up. Honestly, if you're making a Jedi game and it doesn't play like Jedi Outcast or Jedi Academy, then don't bother. Then they showed a couple indie games, Unraveled 2. Haven't played the first one as it didn't really interest me, but it looks fine. Then there was Sea of Solitude, which looked interesting, but I need to see more before I can come to a conclusion. A lot of nothing was here. There was a mobile Command & Conquer game that pissed people off. And then they ended on Anthem, and boy did it not look that interesting. All I really can say is, don't expect BioWare to stick around if it doesn't do well. But yeah, that's just about it. Pretty bad, but just what I expected out of EA. Next is Microsoft. Microsoft did something weird and unexpected. They had a pretty decent conference. Like, it was mostly well-paced and not boring, and they had a shit ton of games. They said they had like 50, I didn't count how many, but it was a lot. So I'm not gonna list every game, just ones I have something to talk about. So it started with a teaser for Halo Infinite. It's unclear if it's Halo 6, but it does have Master Chief in it. I haven't cared about Halo since Halo 2, so this doesn't do much for me, especially since there wasn't any gameplay. But I know a few people who do care, so for their sake I hope it's good. They also apparently went back to the old art style, which seems to be a big deal to those who like Bungie's games, so good for them. But just remember, it still isn't Bungie who's making it, so temper those expectations. But next they showed Ori and the Will of the Wisp, and this one hurts me because it looks so good. But I want to play the first one first because it looks so good. But I couldn't get it to work on my PC, and there's no PS4 or Switch version of it, and I'm not getting an Xbox for one game I should be able to play on PC. Next was Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, which is a From Software game. I haven't played any Dark Souls games, but I have been meaning to try one at some point. This game looked pretty interesting, especially since it looks like it has a cyborg samurai. I may give it a shot. Let's see, skipping ahead, there was Crackdown 3, which apparently still exists. Played the first one, and it was pretty fun, especially with friends, but I haven't been clamoring for another one. The only way I'd consider getting it is if Terry Crews is the main character and not just used in marketing. Metro Exodus was shown. I played the first one, it was alright. I have a friend who likes the game, so he's happy, but it didn't do much for me. They showed Kingdom Hearts 3 for some reason, even though Square has their own conference. They showed Sea of Thieves, but with content this time maybe. Conference just kinda pulled to a halt when Forza appeared. Like, it's a car game. It's not that complicated. Did you really need to show it off for 10 minutes? I think everyone got the point. Although I'm disappointed they didn't show a real car on stage this time. I find it pretty funny that they showed PUBG when all I've ever heard about the Xbox version of it is how broken it is. And then there's The Division 2. Yep, it's a generic third-person shooter. Nothing there stood out in any way as being anything more than the bare minimum. Honestly not sure how anyone could be excited for this. Also, they did the whole fake gamer talk during the demo, and seriously, why do they keep doing it? That's not how people talk when playing games. Devil May Cry 5. It was funny because the design of Nero made him look like Dante from the reboot. And people were freaking out on Twitter before they realized it was Nero. I've only played the first game, and even then not for long because I could not get the hang of it and just kept getting my ass kicked. For a while, I've been interested in trying the series, but it's clear it's going to be an uphill battle if I ever try again. Cuphead is getting DLC, good for those who love that game. Been meaning to play it at some point. Okay, so they announced a new Battletoads game, and this is just funny and infuriating at the same time. So Microsoft, all those years ago, bought Rareware from Nintendo, a revered developer responsible for many great games and has quite a few of amazing IPs. And Microsoft doesn't take advantage of it at all. Microsoft owns Banjo-Kazooie, Conker, Perfect Dark, and Jet Force Gemini, and they do nothing with them. Oh, but fucking Battletoads, yeah, that's what they use. Seriously? Battletoads? Battletoads. Does anyone even like Battletoads? Because all I've ever seen or heard of Battletoads is how bullshit it is. Microsoft's ineptitude never ceases to amaze me. So they showed a few Gears of War stuff, a 5th game, and a couple of mobile games. One of them being a Funko Pop game for some reason. Anyways, much like Halo, it's been years since I cared about Gears. And then they ended it on Cyberpunk 2077, which is still a thing. Its first trailer was 5 years ago. Wish they had shown gameplay because a CG trailer does nothing for me. Yeah, Microsoft had a lot to show, but there were a couple problems. For one, most of the games didn't really interest me, which is a personal taste thing, but the other is that there's still no reason to get an Xbox One. I'm pretty sure every game shown is also on PC or PS4. I think they gave up on consoles. I doubt they'll make another one because they aren't even trying. But other than that, it wasn't bad. Probably the best conference they've had in years. Next up is Bethesda, and I don't have much to say since I'm not that into their games. They showed Fallout, but I don't care about Fallout. They teased The Elder Scrolls 6, but I don't care about The Elder Scrolls. And they had some other stuff I don't care about. The only points of interest for me was Rage 2, which doesn't look bad. Might check it out. And they announced Doom Eternal. Doom 2016 was great, and a sequel was all I wanted out of this. They didn't show gameplay, but it's nice to know it's coming. Actually, the best thing was Skyrim Very Special Edition. I love it when companies get self-aware. I skipped Devolver, so next up is Ubisoft. Ubisoft is another company I largely don't care about. The only thing I wanted was another Rayman game, and they didn't deliver. Instead, we got Ass Creed, which I've long stopped caring about. You know, I don't think there was a single thing they showed that I have any interest in. The best part was when Grant Kirkhope came on stage and started playing Donkey Kong music. Also, that part where this guy came in on a motorcycle and fell into a monitor was a thing. Oh, there was Star Fox in that Toys to Life game. I might have cared about that one if it wasn't Toys to Life. They also showed a bit of Beyond Good and Evil 2, which caught my attention more than the first trailer, but they didn't show much of the game, so it does nothing for me. I skipped Square as well, so now it's Sony. And boy, did they sure drop the ball. First off, Sly 5 is all I ever want out of Sony, and it wasn't there. But it started with everyone in a church, and then a guy plays a banjo for 5 minutes before we see The Last of Us 2. I played the first one and didn't really care about it, and this gameplay looked really scripted and fake. I don't believe the game will actually be like that. But after that was an intermission, with some people talking about some bullshit, who cares, for like 20 minutes. And the reason they did that was to relocate the audience to a different stage. Why even bother with the church if it's only to show one game? But then when we came back, there's a guy playing some flute for another 5 minutes. Just get to the damn games already. It's 30 minutes in before we get to the second game, which is Ghost of Tsushima. Now, this game interests me for a couple reasons. One, there aren't a lot of samurai games. And two, it's made by Sucker Punch. And I'm a big fan of the Infamous series, and especially the Sly Cooper series. But I'm a bit disappointed because it seems like they're trying to be more on the realistic side. And I'm tired of games trying to be as realistic as possible, both in visuals and gameplay. Infamous had superpowers, and Sly Cooper was more cartoonish and had stuff like magic and a giant robotic owl. It was great, but so far, it doesn't seem like Ghost of Tsushima will have anything as cool or fun as the previous games. I hope I'm wrong. I hope the ghost in the title is more literal and we get something more in line with their previous games. But as it stands, of the 3 samurai games shown at E3 this year, this is the least interesting to me. Also, the combat doesn't look that interesting. I hope there's more to it, but from what we've seen, it looks like Arkham combat. So other things they've shown. After 3 years, we got gameplay of Death Stranding, and it was mostly just walking. I need a lot more before I'll give a shit about it. The Resident Evil 2 remake finally got shown. There wasn't any gameplay in the conference, but I did see some gameplay afterwards, and it looks like it plays a bit like Resident Evil 4, which has raised my interest in it quite a bit. I might just try it, even though I never had an interest in classic Resident Evil. Kingdom Hearts 3 was shown here for some reason, even though it was in Microsoft and Squares. There was a game called Control that looked interesting, but I need to see more. Neo 2 was announced. Haven't played the first, but I am interested in trying it. And they ended on Spider-Man, which they still haven't shown swinging through the city, which is all people care about in a Spider-Man game. I want to be excited for this, but it looked very scripted, and the combat looked like Arkham combat again. Arkham Asylum and City were good, and the combat was fun, but it doesn't need to be the combat system from most games. Do something different. How about use the combat system from Web of Shadows? That game's combat was really fun. Build on that, please. Also, the mysterious villain teased at the end better be the Wall. And that's it from Sony. The beginning was horrible. It did pick up, but that really soured my mood for the rest of it. And most of the games shown we already knew about. There were some cool stuff shown, but all in all, it was one of their worst. And last but not least, there was Nintendo, which is always my most anticipated part of E3. Nintendo is really the only big company I still care about, and their show was alright. It wasn't their worst, but it could have been better. They didn't show a lot of games. Now, they showed a lot of one game in particular, but I'll get to that later. So they started with a new IP, a Demon, whatever, Cross Machina. It caught my interest, but I need to see more. They showed some stuff I personally don't care about, like Fire Emblem, and they talked about Pokemon a bit. But the thing I mostly care about, besides the obvious one, is Super Mario Party, because it doesn't have the stupid car mechanic. Although one thing that worries me is that it appears Bowser is a normal playable character. Does that mean there aren't any Bowser spaces? Also, I thought at one point I saw Mario roll a 0, which could be a major pain in the ass. I know the Treehouse has played it a few times, but I didn't watch that, so I don't know much outside the trailer. But either way, it still looks like a decent Mario Party game for once. Let's get to the big one. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate looks so damn good. They're actually bringing back every single character from all the previous games, including Snake. I was worried that the third-party characters like Cloud and Rio would be cut, but no one was cut. And that's what I wanted for every game. Even if I don't like a character, I don't want them to be cut because other people might like them, and it adds more variety to the roster. Plus, you can beat them up if you really don't like them. I love pretty much everything they've shown about it, but there are a couple things I don't like. Samus still uses the other M design, and I hate that design. Waluigi is still an assist trophy. God damn it, the great and mighty Wa should not be contained like this. Also, where the hell is King K. Rool? Put him in already. There's still a chance he could get in, but they said there won't be a lot of newcomers because getting every character ever was the priority, and I don't think they'd pick King K. Rool, as we've already got a huge Megaton newcomer in Ridley, and it might not be as big of an impact after that. I'd certainly be happy, but I don't know. My only hope for K. Rool at this point is if he's a secret character that they don't reveal before launch, or it's a DLC character. Either way, I want him in. But as for Ridley, I was in the he's too big camp, but I never really cared if he got in, and I'm fine now that I see it. Although he does lose a bit of his intimidation, shrunken down like that. He was always supposed to be huge. He wasn't my first pick for a Metroid character. Rundus and Dark Samus would have been great, but I'm happy with what we got. Also, they're rebranding the clones as Echo characters. Although some of them, like Dr. Mario, aren't Echo characters, even though they are clones. Maybe it's only characters who share the exact same moves, but with the number slightly tweaked. But then again, there's Pichu, who as far as I can tell has the exact same moveset as Pikachu, and he's still not an Echo fighter. Is the fact that he damages himself enough not to be an Echo fighter? And then there's Toon Link and Young Link, who again, as far as I can tell, share the same moveset. Maybe there's a difference I didn't notice, but it just seems inconsistent with what qualifies as an Echo fighter. But there was a new Echo fighter, Daisy. Okay then. Now I could probably go on for a while about every little thing they showed, but let's just end it at, while it's slightly disappointing there won't be many newcomers, the fact that everyone is back kinda makes up for it. Plus there will likely be DLC. I'm excited for Smash, and it comes out December 7th. But as for Nintendo as a whole, I wish they showed Prime 4. But they probably don't have much to show. Hopefully it doesn't take long before we finally see it. Also, does this mean the Star Fox racing game isn't real? Overall, this E3 for me wasn't all that great. There are a few games I'm interested in, but for most of them, nothing more than interest. It isn't excitement. I want to see more than what was shown before I can honestly say I'm excited for pretty much anything that isn't Smash. A big problem is a lot of games shown were just CG trailers. And CG trailers are just nothing. They don't tell you anything about the actual game outside of the setting. CG trailers do nothing for me at all, and I'm sick of seeing them. That's one thing I really appreciate about Nintendo. They will show actual gameplay in their trailers most of the time. Also, a lot of actual gameplay shown is boring, slow walking as we just show the graphics because for some reason people still get hyped over graphics. I don't get it. It's not impressive anymore, but people still go crazy over it. And why does every goddamn game have to go for a realistic look? I much prefer my games to have an art style over just trying to emulate real life. It's boring and everything starts to blend together and nothing stands out. Ghost of Tsushima only looks distinct because of the setting, not because of the actual graphics. If the next Assassin's Creed was set in the same place, it wouldn't look much different. But anyways, if I'm being completely objective, then Microsoft had the best conference. But I still like Nintendo the most simply because of Smash, and if you call me biased, yes, I am. Deal with it. EA is still at the bottom. They really should just stop making conferences and show their games at the others. But that's all I have to say. I'll get back to working on Until Dawn Part 2.
Send in everyone.
Which one?